Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he's taking this acting thing seriously. He's doing a biopic called The Smashing Machine. Is this going to up his acting game? Let's talk about it. The Smashing Machine stars Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, and is directed by Benny Safdie.
I just need you to let me in.
I took the bull. Always about you. Only about fucking you.
Let's fucking go.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2025 review. The Smashing Machine is a movie that comes out this weekend, I believe. By the time this review's out, maybe it'll be out. I'm not sure. But Dwayne Johnson, I always want to say The Rock, but Dwayne Johnson is challenging himself, taking on a part that he seems very passionate about, called The Smashing Machine. And immediately I thought of movies like The Wrestler. Even before I saw this movie, just seeing the trailer for it, it felt very, I guess, real. You know, if you've seen movies like The Wrestler, it just had a very gritty feel to it. And I love biopics like this. And they often deal with like the darker side of life, especially when you're dealing with wrestlers and fighters, boxers. And oftentimes, those are the movies that I gravitate towards a lot. Even though I'm not like the biggest sports guy, you know, like Rocky is one of my all-time favorite movies. I think that is one of the most inspirational films of all time. And I don't think you have to like boxing to get that, because at its heart, it's more of a love story. So I thought there was definite potential for this movie. So let's dive into it. Let's give you a quick plot synopsis. This is the story of Mark Kerr, who I've never heard of. And I think the point of this movie was to shine a light on him, because he was, you know, one of the pioneers of mixed martial arts, you know, in the octagon. Back in the 90s, this movie takes place between 97 and the year 2000. You know, I remember back when I first came in the military, I came in 92, and this was around the time that MMA started, did I say AMA? MMA started getting going. And I remember watching, like, is it Royce Gracie? I'm sorry, guys. This isn't my forte, okay? If you want to talk about MMA fighting, I'm not your guy. This isn't that type of channel, but I can talk about the movie, okay, and tell you if it's good or not. But I do remember watching, you know, early MMA fighting, and you know, I was pretty shocked by how, I guess, graphic it was when, you know, at the time, boxing was more popular, you know, with Mike Tyson. That I was obsessed with. You know, I'm a Tyson freak, and I used to watch all of his fights when they did the pay-per-view and everything, and watching him knock out Michael Spinks in like 90 seconds. But yeah, that's for another video, right? Let's get back on track. See, I do that sometimes. By the way, if you've noticed, I've been putting out a lot of new release reviews lately. There's been so many of them coming out. And I just want to thank you guys. I've been getting some nice views, because nothing too crazy, but a little bit more than normal, I guess. And I'm a small channel, but I really appreciate you guys coming and just, you know, caring what I think about these new release titles. There's plenty more coming up through the holidays. Seems like this time of year, you get a lot more movies coming, okay? And they're not all horror, but if it's something that interests me, I'm going to review it, all right? So anyway, back to the review. Again, true story, Mark Kerr. Again, I never heard of the guy, but, you know, this is very real and gritty in nature, and it's more about not just his, you know, life as a fighter, although plenty of that is in here, but it's also about his personal life and his relationship with his girlfriend, played by Emily Blunt. She plays this character by the name of Dawn, and I like that there's no, like, good guy and bad guy in this relationship. They're just two very different people. And you can tell that they care about each other and they love each other. But you're also going to see, you know, that they fight with each other a lot. You know, I don't know if you'd call this a toxic relationship, although there is some of that in this movie. And I think that's probably a normal thing when it comes to a lot of these fighters. I think anytime a woman gets into a relationship with a guy that does this for a living, and that's not to knock the guy or the woman, I'm just saying, it's that chemistry is going to be different, and there is definitely a potential for explosions, okay? And Dawn, I think, is just as important as Mark Kerr is in this movie. She's a major part of this movie and the whole formula of why this story works. And it is an unconventional story, too. I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you don't know anything about Mark Kerr, I would say you're probably going to be a little surprised by, I guess, how this whole story unfolds, you know? It's, like I said, it's very unconventional. It doesn't have the same structure as a lot of other sports flicks, but I don't want to spoil anything as far as like if it has a very, very happy ending or if it's kind of a more of a sad ending. I'm not going to tell you that. But I will tell you that that's not the real important thing about this movie. It's more about the journey and just kind of touching on what his life was like. It does touch on steroid use and being in addiction, you know, because of pain relief and whatnot. This is something that's, you know, nothing new in the field of mixed martial arts. But it's also a good story about relationships, you know, and I guess the struggles that can happen in these relationships. Now, Mark Kerr's best friend is this guy named Mark Coleman, who also has a very, very important part in this movie. And it's interesting because you don't realize it until about the midway point of the movie that, oh, this guy's actually more important than I thought he was. He was more of like a best friend type figure, but then he develops into something else throughout the movie. Now let's jump into the pros and cons. I definitely got to give mad kudos to Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson. I think their acting in this is exceptional. Emily Blunt, there's no surprise here. She is one of the strongest actresses working today. But I was really curious to see how The Rock was going to do in this, and he does a damn fine job. And he really kind of emulates the voice of Mark Kerr quite well. There is a section in here where you get to hear the real Mark Kerr, and it's almost spitting image, you know? But it's not really an impersonation. It's more trying to capture the essence of the character. That's what actors do. And I think he does a really good job on this part. Is it Oscar worthy? I don't know. I mean, if he wins an Oscar, I wouldn't be mad, but I don't know if it's at that level. This ain't Daniel Day-Lewis, okay? But I do think he really captures the character quite well. And I think the acting is really great across the board. Now, I guess jumping into the cons, as far as like sports movies go, and I couldn't help but compare this to The Wrestler. I think The Wrestler is the movie that you would probably compare this to the most. And maybe Warrior, because Warrior has, you know, MMA in it. I think Warrior and The Wrestler are miles and miles better than this movie. They just really are. I think as far as, you know, an emotional roller coaster, I think those two movies are just directed so much better, and they really capture those highs and those lows so much better. And you're going to have moments in those movies where you really tear up and you cry, you know? They really hit you in the feels. This movie, I think, was more, it felt more like a document of the guy's life, and it does have some heartwarming moments in it, but I think it doesn't have those, you know, those hills and valleys like those other two movies do, at least from an emotional standpoint. I think it's just fine, and I think when you get out of the movie, it's more like an education, like, oh, okay, now I know more about Mark Kerr, and that was pretty cool. But as an overall movie, as a biopic, I don't think this like breaks new ground or anything like that. I think the novelty of it is, I guess, the way it was filmed. It feels like they were trying to go for more of a Darren Aronofsky type feel like he did in The Wrestler. It looks like The Wrestler, but it just doesn't have the directing talent that The Wrestler did. But to give the movie credit, as far as emotion goes, there is one scene between the two main actors, Emily Blunt and The Rock, where they are in an argument, and it escalates and escalates and escalates, and I think that is the high point of the movie. You know, and there was like a collective gasp, you know, because of what was going on in that scene. It definitely got heated, you know, and it's just one moment in a 2-hour movie. Not to say that the 2 hours is all boring or anything. I wasn't bored by this movie, but I was just like there. Right? But I do commend The Rock for taking on a part like this. You could tell that he was really into this role, giving it his all, and I can't take that away from him at all. But overall, I'll give it a high humdrum. You know, I wanted to like it more than I did, but it was still serviceable. It's a serviceable biopic, okay? And you know what? The opinions on this movie might be all over the place. All right? I wouldn't be surprised if some people come out of this saying it's amazing. But for me, it was just fine. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think of The Smashing Machine. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free for Fridays. Follow me, Drumdums, on my social, support me on Patreon, become a channel member, buy me coffee. You know, guys, thank you so much for watching. Every day, Drumdum out.